Welcome to this episode of It's Not You, but Sometimes It Is, the podcast with real leaders talking about the real crap they overcome. And this episode with Darrell Carder is so heartwarming. His vulnerability and talking about how he's been a really bad boss and the aha moment that helped to bring him through that. So he's been in a very senior leadership role for a very long time and has had some tough wake up calls in his leadership that he's very vulnerable about. So please enjoy this episode with Darrell Carder, who, as he said, worked his way from the ditch to the desk. Welcome to the episode, and Darrell Carder with Hayes Electrical, a national electrical company. You are the COO. I'm really glad to have you here today. So thanks again for giving us your time.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, Darrell, we had a really fun introductory call. You probably are going to sound very Texan to a lot of people. And you've got one of those like boots on the ground, worked hard, worked his way up stories that I think a lot of people can relate to. So, can you give us a glimpse of how you got to the role that you're in now as COO of this pretty large company?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Hayes Electrical, a nationwide electrical company, as you stated. So from the ditch to the desk, as I like to say, I just overachiever, but hated school. Didn't really realize the the schooling that I was getting, I was going to need today, and if that makes sense, right? So as now there's a big push in entry for trade schools, right? You hear it all the time. Go to trade schools. Back then, parents, I'm in my 50s, so 51. My parents were like, you need to go to college. Go to college. Don't follow my path. So I wasn't going to go to college. So I was put in the ditch on a shovel, 325 an hour. And I'm like, I think I'm better than this. I don't really know if I am, but schooling was really not strong for me. I'm just going to work hard. Work hard, show up. Work hard, show up. And truly, that's truly the ingredients for success, in my opinion, right? Just work hard, show up. And along the way, my grandpa was in the oil field. He retired from the oil field, and he had a couple of patents for some oil pill, how you load rigs with pipe. It was my grandpa made it. He always told me, he says, tools are made, tools are invented by lazy people because they didn't want to work. And I really, 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 that really, really stuck with me. Didn't really stick with me until about 10 years into my trade.
Mhm.
And I didn't really make the tools at first, which I do have 4 or 5 patents now in the industry for electrical work. But I made processes on how to do electrical work to make my job easier at work. In doing that, foremans would notice me. Hey, what are you doing? Well, I would do this. They would go sit in a meeting, and their bosses would be like, you didn't come up with that. Who come up with it? So then I was made supervisor. Then I was made general superintendent. And I kind of peaked at that level for about 18 years as general superintendent. And they would never give me the next step. But what I was doing was all of my rewards were going to the people above me.
Mhm.
And I'm like, so I actually had to move away from a company that I truly cherish. I really love the guys. I was there for 25 years. And I finally had to move away to get to success. So I went to another outfit, to an electrical company that wanted to grow, and I was there for 5 years. And I rewrote all their processes for them, right? And growing up, I look back right now, if I was in school, fifth or sixth grade, eighth grade, I'd probably write a paper on Elon Musk. But back then, one of my that I read a lot was Henry Ford, and he making the process, making the assembly line. Everything you truly do, from laundry, cooking clothes, can be saved with time management, right?
Mhm.
And so I take that approach to everything we do. Even sitting in this office today on how I do financials and WIPs is truly the streamline. We come in with processes already done. And you have to do that. In today's world, I don't want people working 80 hours a week. I work 80 hours a week because it's just in my. I take a vacation. Lulu, lady that I work close with, she gets on me all the time because I'll turn in PTO and come to work. And she goes, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, if I turn in my PTO, people think I'm off and they'll leave me alone for a day in my office." She's like, "Well, stay home." I'm like, "Well, no." So I don't want people under me doing that. So I want them time management. So when they're off, they can really enjoy their family to rewind and reload, if that makes sense. So starting in the ditch, understanding the Henry Ford process, everything we do, streamlining, just people take notice and you just climb your way to the top, right?
Yeah.
And then along the way, I always tell people age is a number, right? It's truly a number. Just because somebody's 21 years old, you can learn from that 21. He has a life experience that you can value and learn from. And always identifying them people's strengths and putting them in the right way for success has really helped me grow and taking them with me. So over the years, there's 40 people in this office who's worked for me for 20 years, who's traveled with me because of that. I got a big saying, and it's true. I take all the losses, none of the wins for my team, right? Anyway, that's kind of a high level snapshot.
Yeah. So, Darrell, it sounds like you started with just being willing to do the really hard work, and then
Yeah.
you were kind of innovative. You're always looking for ways to improve things and processes specifically, and you've really figured out how to work well and lead people well, so, because they've followed you from one company to another and been with you for decades. So, it sounds like you've kind of figured out that trifecta mix of hard work, being willing to take some risks, constantly trying to improve things, and really valuing people along the way.
Yeah, that is a very true statement. The value in people, I really didn't learn it. I wish I'd learned it more earlier, sooner, quicker,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And it kind of, we were talking the other day, and I couldn't remember the saying from this truly mentor of mine, Howard Owens, and I'll say his name, he'll be glad to hear it. He said there's two F to leadership: fear or follow. Which one do you want people to do? Right. And before, early in the career, it was more fear than follow. And I had to change my approach. And it's truly easier when people want to follow than fear you. You can get the same result, but they're going to always be looking for another job.
Yeah, well, they say that, if you're leading from that command and control and people are kind of intimidated by you, if you lead like that, you'll get results in the short term, but not in the long term. And you kind of had
That's
to learn that, like many of us, the hard,
that's
long way, right?
that's exactly right. And it's such a true statement.
So, Darrell, that's what I like talking about is all the prickly, sticky things that happen that we learn those big lessons from. So, can you tell us about like an example of when you're in your leadership role and you knew that your style wasn't working? What made you
So
aware of that? How did you kind of wake up and go, I need to change my approach here?
I'm probably going to cry telling you this story, but we'll make it personal. My brother, which is he's passed away now, right? He died 3 years ago, May 17th, was truly my adopted brother. My dad went to high school with his dad, and we adopted him when I was 2 and he was 3.
Okay.
Right. So we were brothers by choice, not by blood. And I think that relationship has really a really true bond with us. We joined the same path together.
Hmm.
And then I remember calling him in the 90s when California was booming. And I said, "Hey, I just got a job in California. You want to go?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "All right, be in my house Monday morning." And I truly was just joking with him. He showed up Monday morning and said, "Hey, I'm here. We leaving?" I said, "Going where?" He said, "Mother Scruncher, you told me we are going to California." And I said, "Oh, I was joking with you, Scotty." Well, he left. So from 90 to 3 years ago, he has always lived on the West Coast. And he was living in Tacoma, Washington. And I called him 8 years ago, 9 years ago, 10 years ago. Let's say 10 years ago. And I said, "Hey, I got a job, Scotty. Move back to Texas, come work for me." He said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, I'll pay your moving costs, help you out." I wanted to get him close. We talked every day, and you wouldn't have known we were across countries, right, from each other. I wanted to get him back to Houston so I could see him, touch him. He come back, first month was great. Then the fear factor came out,
Mm.
and he's like, screw this. I can't work for you. I'm moving back to Tacoma, Washington. Right?
Wow.
Yeah. So he moved back to Tacoma, and then he passed away. And I'm like, for health reasons, it's hard. He went to sleep, never woke up. And to this day, I blame myself. If I would have been a better leader, a better friend, a better mentor, he would still be here and probably still be alive, right? I don't know if that's true or not. That moment, I said, I gotta change who I am. And truly, that really elevated my career. Just it took my brother dying to make me a better person.
Wow. Yeah. So some of us need big wake up calls, I
Yeah.
guess, right? In order to really see. It sounds like he was brave enough and had a good enough relationship with you to tell you what your
Yeah.
impact was, right? Like it's not cool the way that you're being. So what was a really important change that you made? Like what did you focus on? What did you have to turn around first?
So letting you get to the results without telling you how to get to the results,
Okay.
right? I wanted to micromanage everybody, every step, because nobody can do it as good as me. Nobody. And that right there, and when you do that, it's, and I was really good at, I guess, hiding stress, not knowing I was hiding stress in my body, not seeing it, but
Hmm.
other people could see it. You couldn't identify it yourself. And doing that way, making it all the small things, making you, no, you're doing it this way, you're doing it that way, just did not work. It was great to a certain level, and you was never going to get beyond that level. And
Yeah.
it really overloaded me, and it really stressed me out. So, and that's what Scotty was truly trying to tell me. I don't need you telling me how to fill out this form. I can do that. I don't need you doing this. I can do that.
Hmm.
The end results are going to be the same.
Right.
So it was true. That was probably one of the biggest life lessons that, and I still struggle with that to this day,
Hmm.
because it's hard for me sometimes to walk away when I see person A doing this and I can have it done in 10 minutes. But I gotta let them do it, because guess what? All of them 10 minutes, I don't have enough time in the day.
Yeah. Yeah. So there is that, I see a lot of, especially newer leaders who are trying to either do it themselves or completely control how someone else does it. And it does come from a place of stress, like you
Yeah,
said,
that's
right? You
exactly right.
feel you feel threatened that it's not going to get done well.
Yeah.
And then
So,
yeah, go ahead.
no, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Again, I told you that's my worst habit.
Interrupting. Me too.
Yeah.
I think we have a lot in
Yeah.
common, Darrell. So,
Yeah.
so when I work with newer leaders, as I said, this is like a big aha moment. You know what? Other people might do it differently than me, but it's so important to let them do it, even if it takes them longer, because it's their learning process, right? And people like to have autonomy. And when we get so stressed and can't manage our own stress, we control other people. So,
That's, oh, yeah. Ain't that so true?
and now, Darrell, this company's grown a lot, and you have had to be in a very senior leadership role through a lot of growth. So you're having to lead other leaders.
Yeah.
How do you coach and support other leaders to not make some of those mistakes that you've made?
Not very well. Yeah, see, uh, you can see when they start the path they're going to take. So you gotta curve the ship and make it they're out their way, right? And I'll give you prime example. I have a senior PX, his son works here for us. Both of them in the industry. The PX, is a really well known guy, really strong, great leader. We've been together for 20 years. He's one of the guys that followed me over. His son graduated from OU, highly intelligent young man. And I got to coach Kirk in making the appearance of me. I did it totally backwards. Whenever I had friends, family, in-laws, whatever you want to name it, work for me, always expected and demanded more at a quicker result. Right. I
Mm.
said, well, if I'm really tough on them guys, everybody else is going to see it and they're going to get right in line. And I don't have to be tough on them. totally terrible approach because the people don't see that. They laugh at your friends for staying and working for you. They don't change it. And then your people working for you really get aggravated, right? So Kirk does it the other way. He's giving Brandon a big leash, which I shouldn't have said his name. I apologize. But I already said it, might as well keep going. Brandon rightly deserves that leash because he's truly a high performer young man. The problem now on the outside looking in, you almost look like you're playing favoritism. And so how do you go to a dad and tell a dad, right? So you gotta, I don't know the word I'm looking for. I'm tongue tied here. Almost got to navigate that ship farm to actually step in and take the bullets and let him identify it for himself without letting him identify. Because sometimes people just don't pick up on it. I don't know if that answered your question or not, but that was just one example popped in my head.
Right. So sometimes people just need to hear, they need that aha moment of how they're impacting other people, just like you did, right? And sometimes people don't realize how they're being perceived by
So,
those that they lead.
man, perceived is a very good word, and I was literally fixing to say that. Self-aware, right? It's hard to be self-aware at your own mistakes. You can't see them,
Right.
but you can identify somebody else's. So a good coaching moment is I can call them in and go, "Hey, I need help with this. This is wrong. I'm not seeing it. What do you see?" And they'll pick it out, and then the good ones go fix theirs. Now you didn't call them to the table per se, but you actually let them help you with the problem.
Okay.
And now,
Yeah.
now they feel like they contributed to the team. They're winning, but you didn't call out their faults, right?
Right. Right. So trying to let people save face a little bit and
Yeah,
just approach it like, hey, we're in it together.
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So I struggle with what I know very well. What I don't know, I pick up very quickly.
hmm
Right. So what frustrates me is when I'm in a meeting, if I talk about something that's really, really, really deep into my core, I get aggravated when people don't see it. And I get aggravated very quick because I know it. So being in this role on the more of dealing with the day-to-day operation of a company, I have to really dive in and pay attention and listen and and I can course correct very quickly when it goes, but I don't know it, so I don't get frustrated as much.
hmm
If it's a field issue, I put a buffer between me and the field. Right. I let that one guy go in there and do it because I know that aggravate. Well, no, he should know that. I got 20 years in the field. He's got 20 years experience. Why can't he see it? Right. So having a buffer there kind of helps me guide the leadership also, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah. And
I,
kind of keeping yourself focused at the right level of
yeah,
support and not diving down. Yeah.
I don't think I answered your question, but I tried. It doesn't feel like it.
Well, there's a lot of complexity to good leadership, and we seem to there's like a lot of gray areas, and we all learn a little bit slowly by getting hard feedback from people, right?
So I think when I got truly started taking the path to becoming a better leader, I'm nowhere near it. I got a lot of growing. I'm hoping before I retire, I can get there one day. But I think in the path though was coaching a team of 4-year-old girls for softball.
Okay.
Yeah, I advise every person in leadership role go coach a youth sport because you're dealing with the kids. You got 18 little Sallys that all have different personalities.
Mhm.
18 Sallys got two parents, right? So now you have 36 different personalities,
Mhm.
right? And then out of the parents, now you got to deal with the board on how to get your team, when they're going to play. Why do I got to play on a Saturday? Why can't I play on a Saturday night? Well, wait a minute, I don't want to sell chocolate bars. So dealing with them, and you couldn't take the rough and scruff field Darrell in there. You had to take the more cleaner version. That truly was a self-aware moment for me. I thought I just had to show up, play catch.
Okay. Yeah, so a lot of us have found that parenting, coaching, working with kids, we get skills that work just as well with adults. Kids don't want to be told exactly how to do something, neither do
I know.
adults.
No.
Kids want you to show that you have faith in them. So do adults, right?
Yeah, we truly do. Being the number two in this company, I still want Eric Hayes to come down and give me a high five. Hey, great job. But I mean, I still like that praise. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm no different than you are.
Right. Yeah. So, Darrell, now the company's grown a lot and you are the COO. So, at this point in your career, pretty much everything is in your lap, your responsibility. When something goes wrong, ultimately it comes down to you. And you've learned a lot about people and the importance of people, how they feel at work. So I'm wondering about culture. And, at your level now, you have to influence the culture of the company and try and shape it and make it something positive that works for Hayes. So can you tell me what efforts have you done to try to shape the culture, kind of how people are interacting there?
So me and Lulu were talking this morning, L'Oreal, and I call her Lulu. I apologize. I don't know why I called her that. When I first met her, I said, yeah, Lulu. So it just kind of stuck. We actually were talking about that conversation this morning. And before I get into the culture thing, because I truly don't understand it. I truly don't, right? I, my culture was head down, elbows up, work hard, go home,
Mhm.
right? That's not sustainable because you got to be built, I guess, like me, truly to do that. And there's a few people in the office. I'll come in at 5 o'clock every morning and I'll leave at 8 o'clock every night, 5 days a week. I do it from, I start my day at 5 and I do my stuff. And then when somebody walks in the door, I got to quit doing my stuff. And then it's CEO Darrell. And then when the last person leaves, I go back to my stuff. So my culture inbred in me is work hard, head down, elbows up. Can't run a company that way. You got to want people to be here. You got to want people to walk through the door and stay, right?
Mhm.
So we want a winning culture, and to have winning cultures, you have to have winners. But doesn't mean you have to have the best people to be winners. It means you got to put people in the right spot where everybody somebody can do something well. And I think it's our responsibility to identify that and put them in that culture where they can strive at their position, if that makes and they feel like it, right?
Right. Yeah. And we all know, when you have someone who just is in a job that's not a good fit, it makes them miserable and then they make other people miserable, right?
Yeah.
That negativity spreads.
So we were and it was really tough, right? We just moved into our new office. We were in a 10,000 square foot office building with 160 office people, 3 to 4 people per office sharing. I couldn't have a conversation in my office without the whole office notice. We were too big, but we wanted that. How do you get a culture of winning when you put people on top of people and they don't? You get that when you're on an airplane, you're sitting in the back, you feel crowded, you automatically the stress level automatically hits you. When you sit down, you just feel it in your bones, right? You start moving closer to the front of the plane, it's a little bit more calmer. The seats are wider apart. You get the first class, it's a little bit better. It's a better culture, right? It's not as packed. We had that at our office building. We were by the restrooms, right? And we won the winning culture, but there was no room to win per se, right? So
Hmm.
when we built our new office, our hallways are 10 feet wide now at our new office. Or cubicles are wide open, far apart. Or offices are glass fronts. We wanted that open office, but we wanted still people to be able to see to be part of the team, right?
Okay.
There's not one place you can stand in the building and not see outside the building. So we wanted to expand it, open it up, give room to grow, and make it where you're just not on top of each other. That just changes the morale. We had people wanting to work from home, and it was hard for me to say no. Hey, I got to get my whip done. I'm gonna do it from the house. I can concentrate better. Right. It's hard for me to tell you no when we actually piled people on top of people, right?
Mm.
So that's one way we kind of did it was spread everybody out, but yet bring them together with the open concept kind
Mhm.
of works. So you're still one-on-one helping. The winning culture, Lulu and I were talking this morning again about it, and your note was, is it culture or is it strategy? And I said, I interview anybody high level that's PM or above or superintendent or above, their interview hits my desk, right? And they'll ask me, I get asked this probably every interview. And I was telling Lulu, I said, I don't think I've hired one person that asked me this question yet. How's your culture? I haven't hired one. And when they ask me that, I really poke up and I start diving into them and I start asking them questions. What they're saying is, can I come over there and not do nothing and keep a job? That's truly what they're asking me when they ask me, what's your culture when you dive in?
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Winners, the high performers that I've hired has never asked me that question. They make their own culture. And now it's up to me to keep their culture where it doesn't misalign from what we're trying to build over. We're trying to build, I want to, again, team, we don't say departments, we say teams, right? I want to have winning teams, and winning teams, you got to have winning personalities, right?
Yeah.
And you can't have people that want to come and just, I'm gonna get on his coattail and win. So
Yeah.
it's anyway, that's where kind of where
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a right way to look at it, but it's truly what I see.
It's working for you all, right? So it sounds like you're just very diligent about hiring and bringing in people that share that value of we're going to do whatever it takes.
Yeah. So I let I had a little health scare. So I went to the hospital for 3 days and I got a lot of work done sitting in there in the hospital. And I interviewed a guy from the hospital room and I called my two PXs and I said, hey, y'all need to interview this guy. I really don't have time to dive in. They hired the guy. The guy's not here no more.
Mm.
He was a high performer, but he was a bad apple,
Oh, okay.
right? Nothing was right. Nothing was going to work. It was
Mm.
either his way or the highway. And we tell people, look, we're a process driven company. And
Mm.
at this level, you have to be, I believe, I really do believe that. The problem is our processes are not so rigid that we won't change. If
Mhm.
we hire you, Meg, and you can make us better, you can believe it. I'm actually going to listen to you because Darrell Carder doesn't know it all. Eric Hayes doesn't know it all. But as a team, we can figure it out. And that's what we want to hire. We want somebody that can take our processes and not come in and say, hey, they're garbage, but say, hey, if we tweak this one little bit thing, here's the benefits from it.
Right.
That's the culture. That's the culture we want. We want people not to be scared to walk in my office and say, hey, I can make this better.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Darrell, I have a parting question for you because
Uh,
you were very vulnerable and honest about being a pretty bad boss
yeah.
before. So, I'm wondering if you could go back in time and talk to yourself 10 or 15 years ago, what would your advice be for your younger self?
Two ears, one mouth. That's always one to say that.
Talk less, listen more.
Yeah. Talk less, listen more. Don't be scared for change because I think what really made me bad was I stayed in that one position for so long and nobody told me I was doing it wrong. The
Yeah.
bosses, the bosses above me, my boss, my supervisor, and owner of companies, they were getting results from me and they were okay with the BS I was bringing with them results,
Mm.
which in return, it kept me from growing and it kept me from being really who I am.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
probably what I would tell myself.
Yeah. Well, Darrell, I really appreciate that. It sounds like you've learned a lot. You've shared a lot of wisdom with us, even though you had to learn it the hard way.
I
So,
did truly the hard way.
well, hopefully people can listen and wake up and not be afraid of change and to start getting more curious. And that's great advice for all of us. So thank you again for sharing your time and wisdom with us today.
Meg, thank you for having me anytime.